Afternoon. Hey, John. Thank all of you for coming out to Playbook lunch in the middle of the day on a huge weekend. I'm Mike Allen, Politico's chief White House correspondent, and we're excited, honored to have you here today. Thank you so much. We're kicking off White House Correspondents' Dinner Weekend, Washington Prom, if you want, with this event. So welcome all of you out in live stream land, and we have a fascinating panel. We've been having fun backstage that's going to talk about the intersection of politics and comedy and how this president, this first lady, this White House have used comedy as part of a way to reach audiences that they wouldn't necessarily reach through whitehouse.gov. We have four great guests: the press secretary to the First Lady, Joanna Rosholm. We have the star, people are very excited about this, the star of Billy on the Street and Who's Difficult People, Billy Eichner. Funny or Die's president of production, Mike Farah. He told me to say it just like Farrah Fawcett, so I did. And the former senior speechwriter to the president, David Litt. David wrote many of these, a little cheering section here for David, wrote many of the president's jokes for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, only the funny ones. And he's now has gone straight, and now he's Funny or Die's head writer, producer here in DC. Before we start, I'd like to thank our friends at the Bank of America for the Playbook series. Makes it possible to explore so many fun topics, to talk to so many fascinating people, go behind the scenes the way that we're able to do today. The Playbook Events series has been an important conversation and forum for convening around critical issues in DC. And so we appreciate what our tremendous partner, Bank of America, has done. They're willing to do fun things like this, and we really appreciate their continued partnership. Please tweet us your questions. I've got the Twitter machine here, hashtag PlaybookLunch, and we will ask your hard questions. And now it's an honor and it's fun to welcome Joanna Rosholm, Billy Eichner, Mike Farah, like Farrah Fawcett, and David Litt. Thank you for doing this.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you, David. So Vanity Fair and Funny or Die have put together a fun video for this weekend that you're going to be seeing here for the first time. And Mike, just tell us a little bit what we're going to see in just a second.
Yeah, we pretty much did this video so we could get into the Vanity Fair party Saturday night.
Did it work?
Well, I'm still Billy's +1, so not well enough. But David actually wrote it, and we teamed up with Valerie Jarrett and Matt Walsh to make it. And I think it premiered today, or right now, and you guys are pushing it out, so we'll see if you guys like it. If you don't, we know who to blame.
Yeah, I was going to say, we should...
Yeah, well, you have a cheering section.
Okay, that's good.
This is what they're here for. So yeah, so here's the video, Matt Walsh.
Hello?
Oh, hi, Valerie Jarrett?
Yeah, Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, I know you.
Oh, wow.
So, do we have an appointment or something? What are you doing here?
By default. I was here on a tour and I started thinking, Obama's last correspondence dinner is tomorrow. I'm thinking maybe a senior advisor could use my help.
Have a seat and we'll talk.
Thank you. What if you do a video where Obama's shaking keys in front of a baby?
That's funny.
Well, for the baby. What about a joke about how the president was born in Kenya?
You mean how people think he was born in Kenya?
Right. Okay, remember a few years ago, the president did the correspondence dinner and then the next day they got bin Laden?
Of course I remember that.
Any way we could do that again?
No.
Okay, what's the one thing people can't get enough of right now?
Kevin Hart movies.
Comedy.
Kevin Hart.
No, say something shocking.
Are you going to do a spit take?
No way. What if every time Obama makes a joke that lands, he goes, "Curly from downtown"? I just need a list of countries that it's okay to make fun of.
None of them.
Not even Belarus? Is there really a drawer of secrets like in National Treasure?
You know there's not.
What if Obama finally said something racist?
You know what, Matt? I think the president's going to be just fine, and I need to call a senator about confirming Merrick Garland.
Yeah, right, and I got to call a governor about confirming Rumpelstiltskin. Oh, Merrick Garland is a real person's name.
Yeah. Come on, Matt.
Oh, Valerie, would you do me a favor and call my mother and wish her a happy birthday?
Of course, sure I will.
She's a Republican.
That's okay. I get hung up on all the time.
Thank you.
Tell us one thing that you wanted to put in that you cut.
Well, we had a few jokes about the Thanks Obama meme, and for a variety of reasons, it just didn't work out. But maybe in the director's cut, we'll see that in 2017.
And tell us what was in your mind as you put that together. Sort of do a pop-up video for us on why you did what you did.
Well, so I think with all these things, I mean, we're sitting down and thinking, what's funny about that moment, and particularly, we have Matt, we have Valerie. What's funny about their combination that you're not going to see anyplace else? And so, I worked for Valerie for a year when I was first at the White House, and so I knew sort of her tone and her style, and was familiar with the layout of her office, and so figured, here's some things that we just haven't seen in Valerie do before, and of course we haven't seen Matt do with her before.
What's she like as a boss?
She was great, honestly. The thing about Valerie, she has very high standards for everybody, and she expects you to meet them, and that is why you work at the White House. So,
Now, Mike, take us behind the scenes of Funny or Die a little bit. You've been with it 8 years. You had a great description for me. You were talking about how it started as great content, your passions, and it turned out that it would be a phenomenon and a business.
Yes, we are a phenomenon. Thank you for calling us that. Yeah, we came out actually in 2009 for the first inauguration, and it was freezing, but we were running around DC just asking people to give us high fives. Jake Szymanski, who's one of our writers and directors, had this idea for a high five video. And that's kind of how dumb the internet is. A high five video will actually do really well and help you become a phenomenon. And so we did that, and then we got to meet Brad Jenkins and David Litt at the White House. JoJo, obviously. It's weird not calling you JoJo, so I'm just going to keep that. And so we had this relationship going where we wanted to help out. We wanted to do videos about progressive issues, things that we felt should be all that political. Things like healthcare, immigration, minimum wage. These were good things for our audience to know about. And so we started collaborating, and we did enough of those for free that we decided, well, we should try and make some money doing it. And that's when we started the Funny or Die DC office to basically make partner content for the world of politics. Because people here waste a lot of money. So they should waste some of it with us.
And give us an example of partner content that's taken off.
I'm just wondering how many deals I'm killing right now. We just had a really funny video for climate control that came out last week with a bunch of old people, a bunch of old actors you would recognize, basically saying they didn't care about climate control because they were going to be dead by the time climate control became a real issue anyways. And that got about 10 million views just last week on Facebook and on Funny or Die and on all of our social media platforms. So it's kind of what we've always done at Funny or Die, taking talent, hopefully a good comedy piece with a point of view, marrying those two things and getting a lot of people to see it.
And you did something on Common Core that did very well?
Yes.
yes, we did.
Billy, JoJo, congratulations. You are Webby winners this week.
How exciting.
And
I'm kidding, it was great.
Well, what did you tweet afterwards to your friend?
Oh, I tweeted to Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, "Are you jealous of my Webby?" Because he just won like the friggin' Pulitzer.
So you got to co-star with the First Lady and
Big Bird. Yeah, and that's what we just won the Webby for. We did a Billy on the Street type of segment for the internet and for Funny or Die with the First Lady and Big Bird, and it was to help promote the First Lady's initiative with Let's Move, the Let's Move campaign, getting young kids to eat healthy fruits and vegetables, and she was working with Sesame Street, so we all collaborated together.
Joanna, we were excited you were able to join us. You were supposed to be staffing the First Lady today, and you abandoned her to join us, so thank you.
She's in good hands.
So thank you so much. How do you talk the First Lady into hanging out with, let alone Billy, but Big Bird?
I'm a harder sell. I mean, let's be honest.
100%. Big bird passes bet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's not as hard as you think it might be, actually. She's game for just about anything, and she often challenges us to get her to say no to something. We wouldn't be able to do anything that we've done, any of the funny videos, whether it's with Billy or a turnip or what have you, if it wasn't for her. She's an excellent star, I would say, of these things. Her humor, she gets it right away. It's not something you really have to explain to her. She understands why Billy Eichner is the right choice to get to the audience we're trying to reach about a message that's very important to her.
And what one of the innovations that this White House has had is using comedy to reach new audiences. Who were you hoping to reach with the Big Bird video that you wouldn't have otherwise?
Yeah, so that entire video was around a campaign with the Produce Marketers Association. Basically, they lended their Sesame Street characters to the association to put on like carrots and fruits and vegetables. So, little kids are the kids we want to be eating those, right? But they're not the ones who are paying for it, right? Their parents are. So we knew a fun way to grab attention of young parents who probably stay up late to watch shows like Billy on the Street. Or that this sort of video, because of who was in it, would make it to hopefully the morning shows in the morning as well. That would be out there reaching those parents who would be out there knowing that now their carrots have Elmo on them, and so maybe they can, as Billy put it, bribe their kids into eating them.
Just to pull back the camera a little bit, take us inside how the White House sees Funny or Die. The president also did one of the most watched clips of this president ever was the president talking about the Affordable Care Act. On Funny or Die. Talk to us about your experience and what you've learned from using this new channel.
Absolutely. It's part of what makes me so lucky in this job is that I get to work with people like these on stage here. Funny or Die has been such a wonderful partner in so many ways. They've done a lot with the president. They've clearly done a lot with some of the staff as well.
What do they do that you couldn't do on your own?
Yes, JoJo.
Yes, well, they reach a really vast audience. And I think number one in our communication strategy is we have the message, now who do we want to talk to? And the way we do that is by finding the medium that's going to directly reach the audience that the First Lady really wants to talk to. And these guys do it very, very well.
David, you were involved in the First Lady's slam dunk with the Miami Heat. Tell us about that.
Well, so that one, what was fun about that was it's not just actors, not just the First Lady. You have these, so the First Lady in a context you don't see them. You also have the Miami Heat in a context you don't see them. And I think, you were there more than I was, watching the filming. It just seemed like everyone was having such a good time that it was hard not to have a good time watching it.
Yeah, I'd say the number one thing about videos like that are that they're very authentic to the First Lady, but just like David said, what's fun about it is we're putting her in a situation where people wouldn't expect her, no one expects her to kick off her heels and slam dunk. And she did that, and it's really what helped make that video viral.
I think what's great about the White House and the people that they work with is that they're very smart about the content that they make, but they also don't overthink it. And that's kind of a huge thing, especially in DC when everyone actively refers to the bubble they live in. And that's just commonplace. I think they do a good job of thinking outside of that and also trusting the people that know how to do it really well so that the collaboration, the end result, the people who see it can kind of be a win-win all the way across the board.
Yeah, that's when I was at the White House, a lot of the time when we were doing something like Ferns, we had the professional funny people doing the funny stuff. My job was more to be like, let me drop in with an annoying policy detail to, only slightly ruin your joke. And so that I ended up doing a lot of that. So there is that sense of if people like you're saying, Farah, let them do what they do best.
Now, Billy, you started taping, I think, like yesterday, the last couple days, season 5 of Billy on the Street, and season 5 is going to have a little more politics than in the past.
Yeah, well, we're premiering right around the election, about 2 weeks before the election in November, and we sat down with the writers, and David actually is writing on Billy on the Street this year as well. And part of the reason I specifically wanted David, other than the fact that he's brilliant in general, and a lovely guy, really,
Go on.
is that we're premiering during the election, and pop culture and politics are one this year. It is the biggest pop culture story in a way. I can't think of anything people are talking about more than that, even among Hollywood circles. And because of, I mean, Trump and Clinton, they're fixtures of pop culture also, even more than usual. I mean, any presidential candidate would be to a certain degree on SNL, but this is a whole other level. And so we're playing around with how to tackle that in our own sort of Billy on the Street skewed prism, through that.
All right, Billy, I'm going to say 2 words, and you're going to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh, God.
That's, yeah.
Okay.
President Trump.
No. No, it's not happening.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure about that. It's like what do people have, like they're secreting it? Like you say it and it will be like a vision board or something. So we just have to go with that.
Somebody saying last night.
Although, I would love Melania in the White House. That I can get behind. That's my dream. What a dynamic and compelling figure she would be in the White House. Would love to see her agenda.
Jojo, would you stay on to be her press secretary?
So what's the next question?
So Billy, I have one more for you. President Hillary Clinton.
In one word? Sure. Yeah.
And what would she be like for business?
For business?
For you.
For
Yeah,
my
for
business?
material. Yeah.
Oh, for material. Well, those Clintons have been around a while. I don't know if you heard about that. So, I mean, it would be interesting, and we're talking about that too in terms of, how we deal with Hillary on Billy on the Street, how we deal with Trump. There's a lot to draw on there. Even when we have actors on Billy on the Street, it's always harder when they're actors that everyone just found out about because there isn't a rich history to go into. So with the Clintons, obviously, there's a lot to draw on. It'll be interesting.
Now, Mike, we found that comedy is a great, especially these great videos, are a great way to talk to millennials, to reach millennials. Talk to us a little bit about why that is and what you found, how the form has evolved over the 8 years that you've been there.
Well, to some degree, I wouldn't know what people would talk about if we weren't talking to millennials. And so that's really important, the concerns and needs of millennials. But no, I mean...
Can I be honest? I don't care about millennials at all. I don't.
I do think people overthink millennials.
Billy's 37. Yeah.
I'm 37. I know a lot of millennials. They watch my show, but I'm not going to dictate what I do by what a millennial may or may not like. They're like 20 years old. They're 24. They're babies. Like, I don't care who a millennial thinks should be president.
Jojo, do you want to stick up for millennials here?
I'm right on the cusp, I always say, of being a millennial, but also Generation Y. We also, at the White House and in the First Lady's office in particular, millennials are obviously a big audience for us, and Funny or Die does reach a really broad millennial audience, but we're also looking at Generation Z too, particularly when it comes to talking about higher education and the importance of that. So we're looking at all audiences, even little kids. She's been animated on Doc McStuffins. We're across the board.
I think what's smart about what Billy's saying is he doesn't pander to a specific audience. He has a voice and a sensibility that works, and he's great at it. And the people who get that, amazing. And the people who don't, you can't really worry about that much. And I think no, seriously, you can. And I think that's been Funny or Die's success, is obviously the world's changed and people are consuming content in a different way on social platforms. If you started Funny or Die right now, you probably wouldn't even make a .com, because owned and operated sites and how media has changed and media spends has changed. It's hard to make a business out of original premium content online, really anywhere other than Netflix. And so we do, of course, you always take into your audience into account with comedy, but I think a big part of great comedians is that voice and what makes them special and different. And that's why we gravitate towards people like Brad and David and JoJo in the White House, and obviously the people they work with, because they understand that and they respect it, and they know that when those two things can collide, it can create an opportunity for a message that will really connect more.
I just want to add that I'm a millennial and I'm offended by everything that was just said.
I
expect to be pandered to.
Fire you.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Also, you're borderline millennial. Let's not push it.
I'm a late stage millennial.
Yeah.
I know
You're an old soul millennial.
it's true. No, I have the heart of a boomer.
That's your memoir. Yes.
Heart of a boomer.
Heart of, age of a millennial, heart of a boomer.
Now, David, you wear a lot of hats, but one of your hats is translator. You try to translate DC to LA and vice versa. Tell us about the two languages they speak.
Well, yeah, a lot of what we're doing and what we're doing at the White House, especially in the last few years, we're trying to reach audiences where they live. LA is really, really good at getting attention and creating things that people want to watch and doing really funny stuff. Sometimes, and people in DC are really good at figuring out what a message is and trying to get that message out. Sometimes it is hard to make those two things connect. So there's a really good joke, but it just happens to be totally off message. And sometimes there's a message that just isn't really going to lend itself to a joke. And so a lot of what I'm doing now is thinking about how can you keep the best parts of both worlds, right? How can you have stuff that is legitimately funny that people share with their friends because they actually like it, but at the same time it's not going, wildly off message. It's advancing the agenda that you want it to advance.
That was really the key with the Between Two Ferns that we made with President Obama and Zach Galifianakis a few years ago. When I first heard about the Affordable Care Act and the challenges they were having, it was like the president and everyone had somehow gotten the craziest, most expensive, most challenging movie ever made. But they had a very fractured approach, and I don't think really had thought through in practical ways how to get that movie seen so people could understand this was a law that was good for a lot of people. Obviously, it had some downsides, but overall, it's been pretty successful. And that was the solution that Funny or Die came up with, is that we can help communicate and sell that dream in a creative way that, frankly, the White House isn't set up to do. It's way easier to tell a story sometimes when you're campaigning, because you're focused on yourself and the campaign, than it is to tell a story when you're kind of burdened by government. And that's a fair issue. That's something you can kind of understand. And so when we started working on that, that's something that we felt we could bring to the table. We could get this story told. And really, the Ferns was funny, and it created a great uptick, and there were actually metrics that showed it worked. But I think even more important than that is that it really changed the narrative, because the narrative was so negative with the website not working that all of a sudden it was just like this jolt of adrenaline that got people, remembering what it was all about. And also deadlines help. Human beings respond to deadlines. So for that video to come out, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks, that created that sense of urgency that I think proved really effective.
And tell us about those metrics. It was astonishing.
The day it came out, it increased traffic to the website 40%.
Yeah, I think it had 11 million views that first day, which at that point was by far more than any White House produced video or video with the president on YouTube. This was before Facebook video was huge too. I think if this was happening today, it would be exponentially more than that, because you get so many more views on Facebook.
And all the earned media. It gave people like you something to talk about that people actually want to listen to. So that's not to disparage your amazing work at Politico. I'm so excited to be a guest of Politico's. Right, Billy?
Yeah. I just want to go to the dinner,
So this is your, Billy, you've done this weekend, I guess, 4 times, right?
This is my 4th one.
Yeah. Like, what's this weekend like for you?
Well, it's a lot of fun. You see all those kids from Scandal running around, they love a selfie with themselves. It's fun. It's an interesting clash and mix of Hollywood and Washington, as everyone says. But it is, it's the only weekend like this. You can go out to LA and go to a ton of award shows, and every weekend in LA there's an award show, but it's the same people running around, following each other, chasing each other around. So this is a different mix of people. It lets actors feel like they're smart, which they're not, But it's nice to feel that way for a couple of days.
So Playbook goes behind the scenes. We have a behind the scenes question for you. So some of you have seen this weekend the media issue of Politico magazine. is out. What have we done? It's the media issue, as Susan Glasser says. You could also say it's the Trump issue, but there's a great article in here by Michael Grunwald, The Selling of Obama. I'm going to read you a sentence, and then either David or Mike may buzz in. Obama glimpsed the power of loosening up with his 2014 appearance on the Funny or Die show Beneath Two Ferns, in which he treated insults and plugged healthcare.gov. The president was still the president, so a joke about the first couple's sex life was edited out of the script, but he recognized that unconventional content could reach Americans who didn't read Politico or watch the Sunday shows. What was edited out?
I just whispered to David Litt. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't know. Did the magazine say Beneath Two Ferns, or did you just misread it? Because that would be a whole different show.
I misread it. Michael Grunwald got it right. So Between Two Ferns. Yes.
The process with the White House really was no different than any celebrity video we make and anything we do with Billy or Will or anyone. There's always, in any creative process, there's a give and take. Candidly, I don't remember that joke. It's possible.
All right. So David, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was going to, and maybe this is answering the question you're about to have. I mean, I remember when I was, in 2009, before I worked at the White House, but I was pitching jokes to the White House, I remember being very excited about a joke because, the first couple had just had their date night to New York. And so the joke was, people said that I spent too much money on date night to New York with my wife. I just want to make it clear to the American people that wasn't spending, it was stimulus. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. And then that came, it didn't come back. You know what I mean? Just it clearly disappeared. So I think one of the things I have learned, and I think everyone working with the White House learns, unless they already realize this is obvious, which I probably should have, is that, obviously jokes about things like national security are not going to make it in. Jokes about the first family that are, anything but gentle and supportive are not going to make it in. And I think that's, partly because the president has some standards that he has every single day, including when he's telling jokes.
And putting aside the first couple's personal life, what are the third rails?
The big one I think that I just mentioned would be anything. You just won't see anything national security related if you go back over the last 7 years, because you just don't know what that's going to look like 2 weeks from now. I mean, there was the joke that George W. Bush did at I think it was the Radio and TV Correspondents' Dinner, where he had a picture of him looking under the couch and said maybe that's where the weapons of mass destruction are. And I think that was just a moment when that line got crossed, and you never want to push it too far in that way.
So what is the edgiest joke that you wrote that got delivered by the president or the first lady you didn't think would ever make it through?
I won't say, I don't like to talk about who wrote which joke, because I think generally...
So not you personally, what is the edgiest joke that came out of the mouths of the president or the first lady that you didn't think it would get through?
I thought, and I will say I didn't write this one, but I wish I had because it was so funny, the bucket list joke that the president made last year, where he said, my advisors asked, do you have a bucket list? And he said, I certainly have something that rhymes with bucket list.
Yeah.
And then he was like, take action on immigration, bucket. And the fact that he was willing to do that, where, that walked up to that line, but I think that's why it was funny. It was edgy without crossing that line.
Yeah, Zach and Scott Aukerman had a great joke where they asked the president how it felt to be the last black president ever. And when I saw that joke, and then I saw it in the video, that was a good feeling.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add is that if you watch, if you go back and watch the dinner last year, I'm sure if you watching tomorrow night, one of the reasons the president can get a joke like that across is just that he has such good timing, and he really is so talented at telling these jokes that in the hands of somebody else, it might not come across that well, but he can pull it off.
So how would you describe the president's delivery style, his sense of humor?
Well, I think it's the same thing that makes him a good speaker when he's not telling jokes, which is he just has a really good sense of audience. He can sort of intuit what the audience is feeling, and he can hold on just long enough that there's just the right amount of tension before he delivers a punchline. And that's the kind of thing I think where you sort of watch and you're like, I can't believe you can do that and then also be the president too. I mean, it's pretty remarkable to watch.
That was the craziest one. I don't know, maybe my first or second dinner was when was that when Trump was there too, and Seth Meyers hosted maybe?
That was 2011, yeah.
And was that then the next day when they announced Bin Laden?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is still like the craziest, coolest thing I've ever seen. Is someone to live that comedy performance, knowing what was going on the other side of the world, is just.
And if you watch now, I mean, even if you go back and watch, because Seth Meyers made a joke about where Bin Laden was hiding, and the president laughs at the joke. And even watching it now, when you know how this movie ends, you would not know that he knows what's going on. I mean, that was a very good performance.
That was the dinner where the president joked about Donald Trump. Trump didn't take it so well. The president said, "Donald Trump is here tonight," laughter and applause. Now, I know he's taken some flack lately, but no one's happier, no one's prouder to put his birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald. And that's because he can finally get back to focusing on the issues that matter, like, did we fake the moon landing? You were in those meetings. What was the genesis of the Trump jokes, which went very well?
So I'll say, actually, I was not in those meetings, because I had been at the White House about 3 weeks at the time, and so...
David, you're way too modest. Just say you wrote it.
So there I was, yeah.
So
this
still
is very
Valerie about Hollywood. In Hollywood, you take credit for everything.
So I just say that I was like, oh, we should get Bin Laden. That was, I was in that meeting.
Now you get it.
Okay.
All right.
Totally my idea. No, so for me, what was funny about that is, so I wrote a joke where the punchline included Bin Laden and then it went into the meeting and it got changed, and I was really annoyed. And I like drafted an email being like, how dare you change this? It was so much funnier, to John Lovett, who was responsible for the dinner at the time. And I didn't hit send. And then the next day I was very glad I didn't hit send.
Joanna, how does one persuade the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States to run down the colonnade?
Well, first you have to find time on his schedule, which is not easy. But, you know, he's a good sport, just like she is. And he knows that, you know, all of the First Lady's initiatives are very important to her. This one was Let's Move focused. And so we were doing a really big push that year, and you know, it's not that hard. It's for the First Lady, and it's something that's really important to her, but to him as well.
And you're in these meetings. What is the president's sort of style? Like, how involved does he want to be in the wordsmithing? Like, does he have jokes of his own? Like, what's the sort of creative process?
For the president or the First Lady?
Oh, we'll start with the First Lady.
You know, my job is to come up with a communication strategy to help get those messages she wants to get to the right people. And, you know, whenever we present those to her, it's never fully baked, right? Because she's usually the one with the best ideas. She's hands down the funniest one in the room, and she's hands down the smartest one in the room. And she really knows how to best reach those audiences. So she is very involved in all of those processes.
And tell us a little bit about her instinct for reaching those audiences.
Her instinct for reaching, well, like I said, her ability, you know, we'll present these ideas to her like doing Billy Eichner, or why it would be funny to dance with a turnip, or, you know, any of these sort of ideas. And it doesn't take a whole lot of explanation. She really has that instinct. She's really smart, really funny, and knows why this particular funny idea is going to reach directly, you know, those young kids that are maybe watching Doc McStuffins, or the young parents that are watching Billy on the Street.
And isn't that why it was so important in your video? Remember talking through, and she was so cool about it, her getting in the grocery cart with you pushing behind, yelling.
Well, I mean, part of Billy on the Street, a lot of it relies on spontaneous reactions from people. And I think for obvious reasons, many of the things you guys do are scripted in the comedy world, and most things in the comedy world are scripted. If you do a sketch on Fallon or SNL, those are scripted in advance. Everyone's team has seen it. But with Billy on the Street, you can't do that. It won't be funny. And so one conversation we had to have, and luckily, you know, the First Lady is smart enough to know that how important this aspect of it was, as was Joanna and her whole team, is that we could give the First Lady and her team a sense of what we were going to do, but we couldn't say, here are the things I'm going to ask you to do, because the comedy was going to come out of seeing her spontaneous reaction for the first time on camera. And that was a little bit of a conversation leading up to it, because that's unusual. But once she came to film, the first thing she said to me was, all right, I've been told I can't know anything. I don't know anything, so I'm just trusting you here. And I said, it's going to be fine, you know, it's going to be funny. And then I asked her to, like, put me in a shopping cart and push me around while I read Gwyneth Paltrow's Oscar acceptance speech. It's a whole thing.
Yeah, and you talk about things that don't get through too. I never in a million years would expect the First Lady to, with a straight face, slow dance with Big Bird.
I had her slow dance with Big Bird while I sang I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. I had her do some wacky things. And I think what's so smart about the President and the First Lady and their surrounding teams is that they know that if they tried to water that down, or if they tried to water down Between Two Ferns, everyone's going to say, that sucks, that's lame. And all the young people who are so media savvy these days would call it out, and no one would share it on Facebook. It wouldn't be a cool thing because it wouldn't seem genuinely funny. And they know enough to say, all right, maybe Jimmy Carter wouldn't have done this back in the day, but we know how to reach people because we're in an age of authenticity.
Right.
You know, and if you're not authentic to the comedy and the policy, it's not going to get out there.
Exactly. Again, our goal being, let's reach that audience. So if we're not funny, if we're not, if the First Lady's not thinking like, maybe I should just let Billy roll with this because he obviously knows what reaches his audience best, then we're not going to actually reach that audience. So.
And Billy,
I should be president, I think.
How many Billy for President supporters do we have here? Yes.
Thank you.
What's your platform?
My platform, I'm real conservative, I gotta tell you. I'll talk about it. It mostly involves the Golden Globes.
And what's your slogan? Your bumper sticker?
My slogan is like, I'm on Access Hollywood tonight with Billy Bush. That's my slogan. Billy Bush is gonna be my vice president.
So you said
He'd love that, by the way.
It's very bipartisan of you.
Yes, he actually is. I think he's a Republican. Well, he's Bush.
He's related,
right?
yeah.
you said the First Lady showed up in like a sweater and jeans.
Well, yeah, because she knew we were going to run around, and there's a certain amount of running around and craziness that happens on Billy on the Street. I was in a sweater and jeans. She was in a sweater and jeans. Big Bird was naked, which was disgusting. And he's technically a child. So the whole thing is really weird.
Yeah, that was actually kind of like the hardest part.
Yes, Sesame Street was much harder to deal with than the First Lady. Seriously, because Big Bird is very difficult. But Big Bird is a child, right? Kind of, he's a timeless child who doesn't age, like Demi Moore, you know?
You should try dealing with Ernie and Bert.
Bert and Ernie, we've had nights. I can't even tell you how well that's been like.
So, David, I'm going to tell you a joke from the president from the 2013 White House Correspondents' Dinner, and you're going to tell me how it came about, why it's funny. The president says, some folks still don't think I spend enough time with Congress. Oh, come on. Why don't you get a drink with Mitch McConnell? They ask. Really? And you get laughter, and the president says, why don't you get a drink with Mitch McConnell?
So I'm enjoying all these dramatic readings of these jokes. I hope you'll do this on Sunday morning. No, I mean, I think the way that came about is like any of these jokes come about. 3 weeks before the dinner starts, give or take, you have a whole team of people, both the speechwriters at the White House, but then also some former staff and comedians who don't mind sort of being discreet about working for free. And so they'll pitch stuff. We end up with hundreds of jokes, and we cut almost all of them. And the few that remain, that was one of them. And I think clearly what's funny about that is it was just a moment when you got the feeling that you saw a side of the president that was a little bit aggressive in a way that he probably could not have done in a press conference. And people it goes back to what we were saying about the First Lady, or seeing Valerie on this video that we played at the beginning. It's just a new way of seeing someone you've already seen a lot, and you see them in a more human light.
And how involved is the president in a script like The Dinner of Saturday Night?
So he's not up, for 3 weeks straight working on one-liners. He's got things to do. But I will say, he's gotten involved about a week before the dinner, and he'll look at jokes. He'll certainly say, he'll either laugh at something and you're like, all right, check, this is good, my existence is validated, or he'll kind of give you like a puzzled look, and then you have like a miniature heart attack, and he'll go through these things, and he makes them significantly better, both in terms of picking the ones that he gravitates toward, and then also every year when I was sort of responsible for the dinner, I would get his handwritten edits right before the speech went final, and it's, you know, he'll mark up almost every line, and it's little stuff, you know, changing one word here, adding a comma, holding a pause, but the things that take these jokes from, you know, good to great. And so it's always just really, it was so cool to watch him write, because he's doing my job so much better than I could ever do it. So that's always a neat feeling.
And do you ever explain a joke to the president? He's like, oh, I get it, or if he doesn't get it, he doesn't get it?
We have tried. I think the general rule that if you have to explain it, it's not funny, applies in the Oval Office as much as it does anywhere else. And so I think, you know, a couple of times we would say, like, maybe, and, you know, but usually if he didn't respond to it the first time, that was a sign that it's probably not right.
And will he deliver the joke? Will you do an actual rehearsal? Will you see him deliver the joke?
So he'll read it through. It's, you know, it's not like, you know, he's not standing there like, you know, doing practice necessarily, but, you know, we have a sort of a small, you know, it's a small room, right? Four or five people in the Oval, and he's reading those, and, you know, it's always different when he reads it in front of an audience, because I think he does respond to a crowd in a way that, you know, you don't when it's just 3 or 4 staffers sitting on the couch.
And he has a very, like, specific, effective delivery. He will deliver, and then he'll kind of laugh at his own joke, and then he gets a second laugh.
Well, I think part of what is funny about the president telling a joke is that the president is telling a joke. And I think he knows that. So I think just the part where, you know, the fact that he's having fun and that he's enjoying himself, people enjoy watching that. And so I think, you know, sometimes, you know, he'll, like you said, he'll smile a little bit at his own joke, and that will draw some extra laughter from the room too.
And who would be the 4 or 5 people in the room for a speech like Saturday night?
So it would be a couple of speechwriters, usually the chief speechwriter, so Cody Keenan, who's there now, or John Favreau in the years before that. You know, we'd have people from maybe the press office, but it depends year to year, you know, whoever is holding the pen on that speech. And so we'd sort of gather around. If there's a video, we'd have someone from our digital team there to, you know, press play and show them what they've been working on. And, you know, again, I was always just very impressed by the president's instincts for comedy. There was one year where we showed him a video, and he's like, that's pretty good, make it a minute shorter. And he was exactly right.
But you got to choose.
That's good advice. That's pretty much every note at Funny or Die. You know, it's like, great, make it shorter.
And over the 8 years you've been doing it, have things gotten notably shorter? Like, how has the form evolved while you've been there? What works now?
For millennials, Mike? Is that what
You
you're
read
asking?
my mind. I was embarrassed to say it.
It has changed a lot, but I think you just have to be strategic. You have to know what you're trying to do and what that comedy is, and then understand the platform. So Snapchat, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, funnyordie.com, they're all platforms to tell a joke. Slightly different people on each platform. And so it's kind of finding that balance. In general, you should not be writing specifically for a platform, though it's good to know what works. I mean, you want, you know, any comedian really, especially the ones we work with, they want their work to be seen. So it's good to be cognizant of those platforms, but you don't want to be too beholden to it, because you really want the comedy to stand out. And just going back to David's point, I think just the recurring theme, if you do it in an authentic way, for a politician, there's no downside to being self-deprecating. Just like that's in life too. Everyone likes people who are willing to kind of poke fun at themselves. And I think this president and this time, this age of authenticity, like Billy said, that's just where it's become finally comfortable to do it and do it publicly. And I think, you know, if it is President Trump, I'm personally, unfortunately, not as convinced as Billy. It could be. You know, I mean, a year ago, no one would expect we were talking about this moment and actually having to answer that question. But he's very savvy. He knows how to put on a show. He knows how to communicate. He knows how to talk to people and, frankly, tell people what they want to hear and are not hearing it from other people. So in many ways, he's doing similar things than everything we've been talking about the last 40 minutes.
Cool. Well, if he gets elected, it's your fault.
Okay. Will you be in a video with him?
Well, yeah, I mean,
You
I
want
want
those
hits.
hits. Yeah, you want hits.
I need the hits.
Yeah.
He's welcome on my show anytime. Don't get me wrong. No, he's not actually.
What do you think?
He isn't.
What would he be like in a shopping cart?
Donald Trump? Oh yeah, he does a lot of his own grocery shopping. A real man of the people.
But what do you think he'd be like to work with?
To work with? He's really savvy. You know, I was one of kind of my mentors and a big supporter of mine early on before other people knew was Joan Rivers, right? Like, and she loved Donald. Now, she didn't stick around long enough to see, maybe that's why she died. She didn't want to go through all of this. But pre-presidential Donald, you know, she loved Donald Trump, you know, and I was really close with Joan, and the reason she loved him is because he's a showman. Yeah. You know, that's the reason I loved Celebrity Apprentice. Are you kidding? Like, that was one of the, and I'm not even a big reality show person, but that was a very well done reality show. And part of it is that he has a great persona, but it's all persona. You know, he's like evil P.T. Barnum, you know, he's like a cartoon villain, which is a lot of fun when you're not maybe running the free world. But I know, he's savvy. He's media savvy. He knows how to be on camera. And he's funny in his own warped way.
Yeah.
So, Mike, with a practitioner's eye, what is it that he does that works? What is it that he clearly gets?
Well, first of all, for better or worse, his brand, because he has spent his whole life talking about his brand and how successful he is, if you say that enough, people do think it's true. And so he has a brand. People hear Trump and they think of success and power. And whether we agree with that or not, that's clearly a reality for a lot of people out there. And so I think it's combining and knowing that brand and then manipulating it in the way that Billy just talked about to make it entertaining, to make it edgy, to tell you the things that, you know, no one else tells you, to speak the truth, to play into people's fears and insecurities. He's not the first person to do it. He won't be the last. And we're ending it on a downer. We have 2 minutes. Someone ask a question not about Trump.
No, we're gonna end on an upper. But what you said you're less convinced than Billy that he.
I don't think anyone knows. No one knew we would be in this position, and I think it's the next 6 months. I think like the last 9 months. I think you have to throw a lot of logic and rationale out the window and be prepared for everything. And I think people who don't want Trump to win can't take anything for granted. You know, every vote is going to count, and especially millennials, Generation Z, they can vote. What is that? There's 12 to 19, so I guess like 10% of them can vote. We're going to have to work very smart and very hard to make sure that everyone knows how important their votes are.
What would he be like in a Funny or Die video?
He wouldn't be asked.
Why?
Because there's nothing, unless he really, because he wouldn't be interested in the things that we would be interested in. Because he has no he's
a terrible person! End of story. Terrible person.
All right, we have a couple of my Politico colleagues here. We have a special guest here, Kate Sherman, who's graduating from GW in a couple of weeks. Her big brother, Jake, has a question.
Oh.
Wow.
He's a big Billy on the Street fan.
I have mastered the Billy on the Street canon on YouTube. So one of your skills is being able to elicit these spontaneous reactions, which are unbelievable. Like you've asked people to name a white woman, and people have not been able to, which is amazing. What kind of reactions have you gotten to Trump and Hillary in these early stages of filming?
We just started shooting yesterday, and so I don't think I asked. Most of the questions yesterday were about things I really care about, like Beyonce, things like that. So I don't think we've gotten to any Trump-Hillary stuff, but we have a lot coming up. So I don't know yet, but I'm a gay man who lives in Manhattan. You know, like, I don't think I'm going to find a lot of Trump supporters. You know, it's, you know. But it'll be interesting to see what people's take is. Mike is obviously a very liberal guy, but has an interesting take on Trump and what might appeal to someone about Trump. So it'll be interesting to see.
What's the most surprising thing you've not been able to get an answer to in your 5 seasons, or 4 seasons, I guess?
That I haven't been able to get an answer
that people have been completely stumped by.
Boy. Well, that's part of the fun of the show, is that people get stumped by the simplest things because of the way I approach them. You know, it's not a softball interview. You know, I literally, people are like going to like their office or they're going to lunch, they're running to the subway to catch a bus, and I'm like, tell me one thing about Madonna, you know, like, and they're like, huh? You know, or something even simpler, like, you know, what's your name? And they're like, ah, who are you? And so everything is hard. That's part of the fun. Even simple things are hard. It's all about the approach.
Right.
You know.
Now for Mike, how has the internet and viral videos changed political comedy? Very different from SNL or the longer shows.
In its simplest form, it's just the speed of how quickly people are making jokes and comments on a national scale, on a national platform. Because before the internet, you really would have to wait for SNL, or you would have to wait for The Daily Show at night. And also with social media platforms and everyone being active and engaged on those, it's made everyone a comedian. Because someone can say one thing and literally there will be a meme about it 2 seconds later. And it's almost like a race just to see who can say the first thing. And sometimes we get caught up in that race, but more so, you know, you want to say the right thing as opposed to just kind of coming in first. And so it's definitely something we have. I mean, it's the internet, man, is like, you guys know this. It's like the news site. It fucking never stops. It's exhausting. And to make good stuff in that cycle and to not become beholden to the culture, which is an issue that a lot of people have with journalism and how certain things are reported, making sure that you are right, making sure you are funny does take a certain mindset to not get caught up in the rat race.
I can't believe you're the one that said fucking on this panel. I'm shocked.
I had no gray hair when I started at Funny or Die, and now I have more than Obama. It's tough. It's not an easy job, but we love it, right, David?
It's also probably an easier job than Obama's, but yes.
Can I be honest?
Is this the part?
It's not.
Is this the part where you?
Billy knows it's not that hard.
Try being funny all the time. He has to be funny one night a year, please.
All right, in just a second, I'm going to come to my colleague Adam Palmer, but first we're going to deconstruct one more joke. David, tell us how this came about. This is from The Gridiron in 2015. So this is one of the few dinners that's off camera. The president says, think about how things have changed since 2008. Back then, I was the young, tech-savvy candidate of the future. Now I'm yesterday's news, and Hillary has got a server in her house. I didn't even know you could have one of those in your house. I'm so far behind. Did you know that? I would have gotten one.
Well, I mean, the truth is those come about just like any of these jokes come about. One of the things that we're always thinking about is what's topical and what's not. And so the first couple years I was working on the Correspondents' Dinner or speeches like The Gridiron, sometime in June, you're like, oh, this is going to be a perfect joke 8 months from now. And that never happened. So I gave up on kind of having a file. What I would end, even 2 weeks before, I don't remember what was topical 2 weeks ago. I mean, this goes back to, Mike, what you were saying. Things just move so quickly. And so trying to address something that's current in the moment, but then at the same time, do it in a way that makes sense for the president and trying to think about making it about him in some way. What's a joke that only the president can say?
All right, Anna Palmer?
So this is for David. You've talked a lot about bin Laden and whether that made it in or not, or the Mitch McConnell joke. Can you give us a sneak peek of a joke you either know is going to be in tonight or that you hope is going to be in tomorrow for the president that he can make a joke about?
No, I can't. Sorry.
What are some, like if you were...
Harsh.
If you were in that room, what are some topics that you would definitely be feasting on for tomorrow night?
Well, I mean, I think there's no question, right, that let me put it this way. It would be shocking if the campaign and the sort of circus taking place on the Republican side doesn't make an appearance in some form or another. I would be surprised if the president doesn't talk about his legacy, just because these are the things that would be on his mind anyway, and they're the things that are in the news cycle anyway. So I think in that sense, you're likely to see jokes that are similar to the issues that the president is dealing with and confronted with every day.
And Joanna, just looking ahead, the First Lady has mastered so many media. What's something that's coming up? What's something that you would like to try or maybe will try?
I think that has actually been answered today. You're going to see, I don't know if you've already seen it, you might not have because you've been here, but there's a little online feud going on between her and Prince Harry right now. So I think those are always the most fun when you sort of, that person who you doesn't seem reachable is, and it's I think probably blowing up the internet as we speak.
And Mike, what's something that Funny or Die is going to be doing this year that we can look forward to? Something that's in the hopper? Or something you dream of pulling off?
Dream of pulling off. I think to Billy's point, with the comedy that he's doing for his show, the comedy that we're going to be making, I think success for us, because there's so many people making jokes about the election, and it's almost impossible to keep up because there's so, what was it 2 days ago when Cruz called it a basketball ring in Indiana, which as a former basketball player, I love that. So I think for us, success will be being a part of the conversation, but also separating ourselves from the conversation, hopefully with the viral pieces that we make with TV shows like Billy on the Street, so that, yes, there's going to be a lot of comedy out there about the election, but hopefully we represent a really smart premium take on it.
And Billy, last question for you. Besides a selfie with the Scandal Kids, what is your dream for this weekend?
This weekend? Man, that's a tough one. My dream? I don't know, maybe some shots with Katie Couric.
That's a pretty easy dream to reach.
Yeah, you're right.
I could actually
That doesn't say much for Katie Couric.
Katie's the best.
We know
she's
Katie.
the best.
I'm hoping to run into Carly Fiorina. Yeah, I'm gonna make her my co-host for the next season. Clearly, she'll do anything.
As we say goodbye, I'd like to thank my...
Always end on a joke.
Yes.
I'd like to thank my Politico colleagues, including Louisa Savage, the editorial director of events, whose birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday, Louisa. We're grateful to the Politico event staff who's pulling off so much over this weekend. We appreciate all of you out there in live stream land. We thank the Bank of America for making these conversations possible, for supporting like these fascinating conversations. Thank all of you for coming out in the middle of the day, and have a fantastic Nerd Prom weekend. Thanks for a great conference.
Thank you.